$250 billion in the next decade. Who gets Medicaid? Senior citizens and the disabled, the aged, blind, and disabled get Medicaid. And this is immediate. Can I have another 30 seconds?
Extend another minute.
Thank you.
The gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just getting warmed up. Who gets Medicaid? The aged, the blind, and the disabled get Medicaid. The Republican budget cuts Medicaid $750 billion. Seniors will be, not 10 years from now, but immediately as those budget reductions take place, according to the Republicans, will be thrown out of nursing homes. I just finished a conversation not more than 2 hours ago with the owner of nursing homes in California. He says, don't let them do it. We're just hanging on. Any further reductions, in the Republican bill will force us to send out of our nursing homes the Medi-Cal, which are the Medicaid, people covered by Medicaid. Who are these children? These are the children in poverty. The children in poverty get medical services from Medicaid in Medi-Cal in California. 20%. Are those the people you want to throw out in the street? You will do it. I yield back my time.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Reserving myself 30 seconds, I would remind our colleagues that are Democrats in Congress slashed $500 billion from our seniors' care, including nursing homes, just last year. And also remind our colleagues that Medicare is insolvent. The biggest threat to our seniors today is to do nothing. Democrats and the President failed to lead. Republicans are not only going to preserve Medicare as it is today for those 55 and older, but for the younger generation, we're going to give them the choices and the options to preserve that program for them for their entire life. Not at this time. This time I'd like to yield 5 minutes to a new member of the Joint Economic Committee who understands that government doesn't create jobs. It's the private sector that creates jobs. The gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Duffy.
The gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. In reference, Madam Chairwoman, to one of the charts we just saw from the gentleman from California, I found it interesting that he laid out many different debts and deficits from prior presidents, but the one he failed to present to this House was the one from President Obama. On the day that the President took office, we were projected over the course of 10 years to borrow $1.8 trillion from the CBO. And today, we are projected to borrow $9.4 trillion. We have inherited now a fiscal mess. Let's review where we're at. This country owes $14 trillion. This year, we are going to borrow $1.6 trillion. Last year, we borrowed over $1 trillion. The year before that, we borrowed over $1 trillion. Let's look out 10 years. For the next 10 years, on average, we're going to borrow $1 trillion every single year. This is unsustainable. We cannot continue on this course. Listen, I wasn't a big fan of President Bush's spending, but his biggest year of deficit spending was $460 billion. That pales in comparison to the $1.6 trillion we're going to borrow today. I mean, I know we've all seen these charts so often, but this is our debt chart from the CBO. We have a sea of red, a sea of debt that we are going to leave off to the next generation. This is unconscionable. What does this mean for our future generations? This means higher interest rates. This means massive tax increases. This means a lower standard of living for our next generation. And I guess I would present to this House, if you were to ask your grandma and grandpa what they thought about leaving this off to our next generation, they would be outraged. They would be furious that this is their legacy, that this is what their grandchildren are going to inherit. We need to fix the problem. And so let's talk about the budget proposal that's been made. Congressman Paul Ryan in the Budget Committee, they propose reducing spending by $6.2 trillion over the course of 10 years. Yes, they also talk about tax reform, a fairer, flatter tax code. And you know what? We have to realize this isn't 1980. We are in a global marketplace. We compete against China and India, Mexico, Vietnam. And you know what? this isn't just against Kansas and Kentucky. We have to engage. We have to have an environment where our businesses can compete, succeed, and win. And when they do, who benefits? The people that benefit are our families because they have jobs. They have opportunity. But if we build walls around this country with more mandates and more regulation and more taxes, we are going to see more businesses go overseas and less job for our families. And as we've been talking about tonight, we will have less revenue into the Federal Reserve. You know, I've heard a lot this evening, Madam Chairman, or Chairwoman, I'm sorry, about Medicare and a lot of demagoguery across the aisle about what it's going to do. Let's be clear with the American people. Let's be honest with the American people that if we don't reform Medicare, the CBO says it's going broke in 9 years. We have to fix it. We have to fix it to make sure we can preserve it for our current seniors. So let's not sit here and scare people and tell our seniors we're taking away their Medicare. We are not. We are working on solutions that are going to preserve it. And so when we talk about reform, to be clear, we're not talking about reform for our current seniors or even those who are about to retire. The reforms we are talking about are for my generation. And what's beautiful about this is if we reform Social Security, we get to guarantee the benefits for our current seniors, but then you allow me to plan for the benefits I'm going to have when I retire. And if we do it, we can succeed in this reform. You know, we've heard a lot about taxes as well. And so we all know here that the top tax rate, 35%, and a family who makes $350,000 a year falls into that tax category. And so I would, Madam Chairwoman, suggest to my friends on the left, why don't we do this? Let's bump that tax rate up, not to 35%, maybe 50%. No, let's go 100%. Let's take every dollar a family that makes $350,000 a year or more, let's take every single dollar from them. And if we do that, we still can't balance the budget. So let's go to the next level. Let's go to the next highest rung of income earners, those who make $200,000 or more as a family. A mom makes $100,000, a dad makes $100,000. We would all agree they're wealthy. Let's take 100% of every dollar they make as well.
I would yield the gentleman an additional minute.
And if you do that, you still can't balance the budget. You cannot tax your way out of this problem. We have to reduce our spending. And if we reduce our spending and we reform our tax code, we can bring prosperity back to this country. But to sit here in this House and tell the American people that we can tax our way out, the bottom line is you can tax every penny of every profit of the wealthiest Americans, and you can't balance the budget. And so with that, Madam Chairwoman, I think we have to take a serious look at Congressman Ryan's budget, and I'm willing to consider other common-sense solutions that are going to get this country back on track, but ones where we're going to demagogue plans and say we just have to raise taxes and not reform are not real solutions. It's going to give us more of the same. And with that, Madam Chairwoman, I yield back the remainder of my time.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from New York is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How much time do we have?
The gentleman from New York has 12 minutes remaining.
12. And the other side?
The gentleman from Texas has 9 minutes remaining.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, I yield 5 minutes to the gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Van Hollen.
The gentleman from Maryland is recognized for 5 minutes.
I thank my colleague. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Brady mentioned the fact that as part of the Affordable Care Act last year, we made some reforms in Medicare. Yes, we did. We got rid of the overpayments to the private plans, the Medicare Advantage plans. Why did we do that? Because they were costing the taxpayer 114% of the fee for service, which is why this notion, frankly, that by saying to seniors you can't stay in Medicare now, you got to go into the private insurance market, has been disproven by our experience most recently. So we said we're not going to overpay them. And you know what? We use some of those savings to close the prescription drug donut hole that seniors fall in. We use some of those savings. Now, it's important to understand that the Republican budget, even though there was a lot of demagoguery about that, you kept those savings. But what you didn't do is continue to close the donut hole. Immediately upon passage of the Republican budget, that donut hole will stop closing for seniors. Now, I want to pick up on a point Mr. Garamendi made about Medicaid, because as this chart indicates, the great majority of funds for Medicaid go to seniors and individuals with disabilities. And this, make no mistake, this happens immediately. We're not talking about 10 years from now, 8 years from now. So this happens right away. Now, Medicaid is a program where actually the costs of care have grown much slower than the rest of the health care market, including the private market. And yet, it is a program that is stretched very thin. You take $700 billion plus out of that system, you are going to be putting people at serious risk. Already overstretched programs. So what choice did you make? Well, this is what choice you made with respect to Medicaid. You cut about $771 billion. Guess what? You return to the tax rates that were in effect on the top 2% income earners during the Clinton administration. Over 10 years, $800 billion. Those are the choices you're making. Put all these individuals at risk, seniors in nursing homes, assisted living facilities, poor kids, so that you can provide that tax break. Now, I've heard it said on the floor that, oh boy, if we do that, we go back to the Clinton-era tax rates, that's going to really hurt the economy. That's going to hurt jobs. Look at this. Look at this. Here's the Clinton-era tax rate. 20 million jobs were created during that period of time. Here's the current tax rate. End of the Bush administration, 653,000 jobs lost. The history tells the story. The reason is because there are lots of factors that go into decisions by businesses on to invest. And while obviously tax rates are a part of it, they are not the major driver in the economy. Now, I've heard it said that this is going to hurt small businesses. Now, I hope one thing we can agree on is that small businesses are the engine of our economy. They're what make this economy go. And so we always hear from our Republican colleagues, well, you go back to the Clinton-era rates for the top, you're going to hurt small businesses. Well, I hope everybody will look at the Joint Committee on Taxation. And what they say is that there are only 3% of small businesses who fall into that higher income category, because we're talking about taxable income. Only 3% of small businesses fall into those rates. Now, we hear from our Republican colleagues, oh, that's true, that's only 3%, but it's 50%. Well, here, 50% of the income comes from those 3%. Why do you think that is? Well, look at the same Joint Committee on Taxation report. Many such businesses are hardly small. Small in parentheses, in quotations. In 2005, over 12,000 S corporations and over 6,000 partnerships grossed more than $50 million. There's your mom and pop store. There's your mom and pop store working hard as a small business, trying to make ends meet. Those are what Republicans are calling small businesses. Now, I'm going to give you some examples of those small businesses. And there are lots of them, but just to give people an idea of the Republican definition of small businesses. Major Wall Street investment house, KKR, one of the big four accounting firms, Price Waterhouse. These are S corporations. Fortune 100, pipeline company, Enterprise GP Holding, Washington law firms. If I could have 30 seconds more, please.
We extend another minute.
The gentleman's recognized for 1 minute.
Washington law firms. And I want to point out, these firms are doing good work. There's nothing wrong with what these firms are doing. But don't tell the American people that these are small businesses. Over $50 million a year. They can help do their share to get our deficit under control. Go back to the Clinton administration rates. Let's have a balanced approach. Yes, we need to do cuts. We understand that. But as the Bipartisan Fiscal Commission said, you got to do revenues too. And if you don't, here's what happened. President Bush inherited $5.6 trillion surplus from the Clinton administration, and whoop, where'd it go? When President Obama was sworn in, the day he put his hand on the Bible, he faced a deficit in that year of over $1.3 trillion and a 10-year deficit of over $8 trillion. Let's have a balanced approach. Let's have shared sacrifice. Let's be serious about getting our deficits under control. I yield back.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Yielding myself 30 seconds, I can't help but think many Democrats are eager for everyone else to sacrifice. What about government? Why can't government sacrifice a little? All those obsolete agencies and wasteful programs, the money they spit away on stimulus programs and bail out anyone who needs it. Maybe it is time for shared sacrifice, and it can start with a big, fat, bloated federal government. This time I'd like to yield 5 minutes to a physician who has delivered more than 3,000 babies in his life, is a valued member of the Joint Economic Committee and expert on health care and many of our health care entitlements. The gentleman from Texas, Mr. Burgess.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized for 5 minutes.
And I thank the gentleman for the recognition. And it is an important debate that we're having tonight. And Madam Speaker, Madam Chairwoman, I hope that people are watching the debate, because this really does set the tone, set the course, set the compass for the future of our country. And this is a debate that really should not be partisan, although we certainly have heard some partisan references. I may even make one or two myself. But right now, intergenerational expectations are down. And in that murky environment, we now have Paul Ryan come forward and bringing us a fact-based budget that provides a pathway for America's future. Everyone knows the rising cost of health care is a serious threat, not just to our federal government, but to our prosperity in general. Unfortunately, the President last year and the Democratic majority that was present in Congress last year made the problem worse. Here's the simple truth. Instead of reforming Medicaid and Medicare and using the savings for deficit reduction, the Democrats spent every penny of savings, every single penny of savings, and then a lot more on a new entitlement program. Incredibly, they accelerated the crisis, and Medicare and Medicaid are even more in peril today than they were before this all started in 2009. They found a fire and they put it out with gasoline, and it is a surprise that it's worse. In contrast, the budget that we're debating tonight, the Ryan budget, saves Medicare and Medicaid for future generations, uses reforms to make the programs financially sustainable. Now, according to the Congressional Budget Office, the Democratic plan that we know as the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act would increase spending by almost $1.5 trillion, primarily by expanding Medicaid and creating new subsidies to buy health insurance. The so-called Affordable Care Act would increase coverage for the insured and uninsured, provide coverage for the uninsured, but that also is going to create greater demand for health care. But at the same time, we put in constraints. We limit physician education and training. We limit testing and patents for drugs and devices. We restrict the very supply of health care, and consequently, much of the increased demand will in fact deliver us higher prices, not more services. The Congressional Budget Office and the Chief Actuary at the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, who scored the legislation, readily admit that they did not include the price effects of the increased demand for services. In fact, the Chief Actuary at the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, his report wasn't even released until 3.5 weeks after you passed the bill a little over a year ago and signed it into law. Thus, the official budget estimates understate the true cost, the amount of spending that was contained within this health care law. And secondly, the available budget estimates ignore the negative impact of higher taxes on economic growth. Almost 4% surtax on interest, dividends, and capital gains for those earning over $250,000 a year will reduce business investment and employment. Thus, the new tax will reduce economic growth and generate less revenue than expected. This problem cannot be fixed by simply raising taxes on the American people. And thirdly, the budget estimates that a 29% across-the-board reduction in Medicare physician payments in 2012 and beyond, as well as continual reductions in other Medicare provider payments. But both the CBO and the Medicare actuary have called the reductions unrealistic. In fact, Chief Actuary Foster said, if you believe this, then I've got good news for you about the future of Medicare. But we all know that the reality does not match the expectations. And then here's the other problem. The Independent Payment Advisory Board, and I've got a great deal of sympathy with my colleagues on the Democratic side of the aisle. When you passed the Affordable Care Act the first time, you did not include the Independent Payment Advisory Board because you saw through that. You saw that as a trick, a trap. And yet, when you got the bill from the Senate that you in turn felt you had to pass, it contained the Independent Payment Advisory Board. What does the Independent Payment Advisory Board do? Well, it gets 15 people, goodness knows who they are, goodness knows who selects them, and they're going to deliver to Congress a menu of cuts. We either get to vote them up or down. Sure enough, we get to participate in that, but if we vote them down, we've got to come forward with an identical dollar figure on cuts. And if we're unable to do that, and when has that ever happened in this body, if we're unable to do that, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, the following April 15th, that is tomorrow, gets to implement those cuts anyway.
I would yield the gentleman an additional minute.
I thank
The gentleman has an additional minute.
And then what happened yesterday? The President, in talking about his vision for the budget, by the way, his second vision for the budget this year, doubled down on the Independent Payment Advisory Board and said, it's such a good idea, we're going to do even more. You know, Elias Zerhouni, the former head of the National Institute of Health, talked about a day medicine is going to become much more personalized. Personalized, predictive, therefore more preventive and requiring more participation by patients. Wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it be great, following Congressman Ryan's, Chairman Ryan's vision, that we personalized Medicare to match that personalized medicine that our children and our grandchildren are going to enjoy in the future? Instead, we're going to end up with more of the same, which is a benevolent, albeit benevolent, central planner, moving those data points around on a spreadsheet. Why not put the power back in the hands of the American people? That's what the Ryan budget plan does. We ought to support his effort and be grateful for its presence. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from New York is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you tell us how much time we have left on both sides?
The gentleman from New York has 6 minutes remaining.
3 minutes.
The gentleman from Texas has 2.5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I yield 3 minutes to Congressman from Vermont, Mr. Welch.
I thank the gentleman.
The gentleman from Vermont is recognized for 3 minutes.
Madam Speaker, one of the great companies in this nation and a big company in Vermont is International Business Machines. This year, they're about to celebrate their 100th anniversary. I was speaking to some folks from IBM in my office a few days ago, and they told me the story of what happened to them in 1992. The world was turning upside down in the tech industry. Companies that wanted to survive had to make big decisions. They had 400,000 employees, and there was some question as to whether they were going to make payroll. They had to make changes. And they did two things. They looked at every single element of their operation. They looked at every single line item in their spending. In every single place they could make a cut, tough as it was, they did. They made cuts. But they also said, where do we have to be in 10 years, and what do we have to do to get there? And as nerve-wracking as it was for those folks at IBM, they made decisions to invest money in acquisitions, in research and development, to meet a plan that required investment, that required spending at a time when they were doing every single thing they could to save every single nickel. Now IBM is stronger than ever, and it's going to celebrate its 100th anniversary. This country has to make similar decisions. We have to cut. There's not an argument here. I listened to Paul Ryan when he gave his opening statement, and he said we have to leave this country and its fiscal state better off for our kids and grandkids. He's right. There's no question about it. And that means, like companies that look at a balance sheet, we have to look every single place we can to save money. And the criticism about many governmental programs, you know is right, we know is right. Wherever we can find that waste, fraud, or abuse, let's get rid of it. That serves nobody, Republican or Democrat. But on the other hand, we have to make investments. There are places we, in fact, do have to spend money. And we've seen that in the history of our country. So judgments have to be made. And my question about the Republican budget is basically the premise in the budget. It's not the goal. Mr. Ryan stated that well. He speaks for me when he says about that obligation to leave our kids better off. But there's two premises in the budget as I see it. One is that lower taxes are always better and will lead to growth. Sometimes that's true, but not always. We have to have revenues to pay for infrastructure, to pay for things like broadband deployment, to pay for National Institute of Science, things that we might argue about where's the best priority, but we need revenues to do things like a company needs revenues to make investments. And the second premise is that less spending is always better than more investment. Those, as I see it, are the two premises that are in this in the Ryan budget, and those are debatable. Now, the other aspect of the budget that, in my view, Madam Chair, is lacking is what's off the table. It's not what's on the table. I don't agree with the Medicare proposal in the Ryan budget, but it's fair to put Medicare on the table for debate. We've got to make that more affordable. What is a problem? 30 seconds? Just 30 seconds.
The gentleman's recognized for 30
What is
seconds.
a problem is that the Pentagon's off the table, the war in Iraq and Afghanistan are still on the credit card and off the table, and whatever our positions are on some of these matters, including military, we all stand up, we have to pay our way. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Madam Chairman, at this time I'll reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from New York is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We provide 2 minutes to Mr. Geramendi, gentleman from California.
The gentleman from California is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to speak directly to the senior citizens of America and to those who want to become senior citizens. The Republican budget destroys, terminates Medicare as we know it today. Under the Republican budget, in 10 years, Medicare will no longer exist as it is today, a guaranteed benefit available to every American who turns 65. It'll be over. Instead, you will be given a voucher that will be insufficient to pay for your health insurance. And there's no guarantee what that health insurance will be. Let me speak also to those who are senior, who are Medicare today. The Republican budget over the next 10 years removes $771 billion, $771 billion from Medicaid. Medicaid provides services to the aged, blind, and disabled. Those senior citizens that are in nursing homes stand the risk of being thrown out of the nursing homes. I want to now speak to those who want to become 65, who want to live long enough to get into Medicare. If you are 55 years of age and younger, you will not have Medicare if the Republican budget becomes law. It is over. It is terminated. It is gone. Instead, you will be given a voucher to go talk to the insurance companies. And what will you talk about? You will talk about pain, pain, pain. They say that there is no tax shift in this. In fact, there is a $6,000 tax equivalent to every person 55 and younger. You're going to wind up paying an additional $6,000. I yield back my time.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Just yielding myself 30 seconds, I would remind our listeners that it was our Democrats who fought the prescription drug program that's been so critical for seniors to buy their medicines. They slashed $500 billion from Medicare to pay for the new Obamacare plan. And they did nothing to preserve Medicaid for our seniors. The exaggerations today that are flying through this chamber really are shameful. What Republicans are intent on doing is preserving Medicare for every generation. We're not going to bury our heads in the sand.
The gentleman's time has expired.
And I would yield myself an additional 15 seconds. Democrats have failed to lead on these important entitlement programs. They had their chance. They failed. Republicans will lead, and we will preserve those programs.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from New York is recognized.
Madam Chair, how much time do we have?
The gentleman has 1/2 minute remaining.
1/2 minute?
Correct.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. The circumstances that we're dealing with is to continue the progress that we have made. We have provided health care for people through Medicare and Medicaid. The opposition here in this district wants to eliminate that. They want to cut back on Medicare and Medicaid and make it more difficult and more expensive. We have expanded the opportunity for people to get jobs. They want to eliminate that. We have tried to make this whole system more equitable, more fair, and more genuine. They are trying to provide more funding for the wealthiest people and less for the working people and less opportunities for the working people. For all of those reasons, we oppose this legislation, and we hope that most of the population of this district will oppose it as well.
Gentleman's time.
Madam Chairman, I would yield myself.
Recognized for 1 3/4 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I will close with this, yield myself as much time as I may consume. How many Americans really think this country's heading in the right direction? How many Americans, middle-class Americans, believe that these deficits, trillion-dollar deficits, can go on and on as far as the eye can see? How many Americans believe that although they have a better life and opportunity than their parents, how many of them question whether their children will have the same opportunities in America today? You know, we can't continue to go down this path, and that's what the Ryan Republican budget is all about, a new direction for America where we no longer hide our heads in the sands, ignore the problems facing America. What Paul Ryan and the Republican budget does, it tells the truth to the American public about how serious a problem we face as a nation, and it offers real common sense solutions to address them, gives them ideas that work, solutions that work. It creates economic growth and job creation by fostering the right business climate for growth in America. It tackles our spending, dangerous spending deficits by reducing those over time and implying and imposing discipline on our federal government so they have to live within the same means our families and small businesses has to do. It provides real security for our seniors, and Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security, more importantly, offers hope for young people who don't think those programs will ever be around again. Paul Ryan, the Republican budget, offers them hope that they don't have today, and it repeals this terrible Obamacare and gives America hope again. I strongly support this budget.
The gentleman's time has expired. All time for debate has expired. Pursuant to the rule, the amendment in the nature of a substitute printed in Part A of House Report 112-62 is considered as an original concurrent resolution for the purpose of amendment and is considered read. No amendment to that amendment in the nature of a substitute shall be in order except those printed in Part B of the report. Each amendment may be offered only in the order printed in the report, may be offered only by a member designated in the report, shall be considered as read, shall be debatable for the time specified in the report, equally divided and controlled by the proponent and an opponent, and shall not be subject to amendment. After conclusion of consideration of the concurrent resolution for amendment, there shall be a final period of general debate which shall not exceed 20 minutes, equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking member of the Committee on the Budget. It is now in order to consider Amendment Number 1, printed in Part B of House Report 112-62. For what purpose does the gentleman from Missouri seek recognition?
Madam Chair, I have an amendment at the desk in order under the rule.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment number 1 in the nature of a substitute, printed in Part B of House Report number 112-62, offered by Mr. Cleaver of Missouri.
Pursuant to House Resolution 223, the gentleman from Missouri, Mr. Cleaver, and a member opposed, each will control 15 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Missouri.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Congressional Black Caucus has offered an alternative resolution to the budget proposals every year since 1981. This year marks the 40th anniversary of the Congressional Black Caucus, and we have, over those years, served as the conscience of this body. And I stand in front of you today to say that this is perhaps the most important of all of the alternative budgets offered by the Congressional Black Caucus. And the reason is that, Madam Chair, we believe that someone must stand up for the vulnerable population. And the vulnerable population is not what we generally like to think. It's not the stereotypical view of a person who doesn't work and is shiftless and is a parasite. The vulnerable population today consists of firefighters, police officers, municipal workers, state workers, factory workers, who've been laid off through no fault of their own because of this weak economy. And those men and women have been struggling, trying to make it. And somebody must stand up for them. They're black, white, brown, they're old, elderly. Some of them are at an age where it will be difficult for them to get another job. And so somebody must stand up for them, and we have decided that it will be us. Now, let me just say that these are some weird times. We do have a budget deficit, and we would not at all suggest that we don't need to deal with the budget deficit. What we need to do, however, is deal with it in a way that will protect the vulnerable populations. Madam Speaker, I have a left knee that is artificial. It is a prosthetic result of football injuries. And once I recovered and left the hospital after the surgery, my brain automatically forced the rest of my body to pay attention to the sick side of my body. And so I automatically, even though I tried not to, did everything I could do to protect my left knee. I even put most of my weight on my right knee. And what I am saying is that our bodies provides us with a message that when some part of our body is vulnerable, is weak, the other part, the strong part, needs to do everything it can to protect the weak part. The Congressional Black Caucus is saying that our alternative budget does exactly that. When you consider the fact that the gaps in after-tax income between the richest 1% of Americans and the middle and poorest fifths of our country more than doubled between 1979 and 2009. So we can see that the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer, and when I hear people say that we must have shared sacrifice, I disagree. The poorest people don't need to sacrifice. I'm not sure that you can find a single poor person who is responsible for the economic collapse of the last 2 years. Mark Zandi, an economist with unimpeachable Republican credentials, said that 1.7 million people will lose their jobs in the first 2 years if this budget is enacted. And so, Madam Speaker, we intend to present our budget now to demonstrate how this body can protect its weak side and still maintain the best of this republic for the protection of its people. I now, Madam Speaker, reserve 2 minutes for the gentleman from Virginia. I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Utah is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I claim time in opposition.
The gentleman is recognized for 15 minutes.
Thank you. I'd like to yield myself 3 minutes.
The gentleman is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I'm so glad that we're going through this process this year. I think this is a healthy part of what we do as the United States of America, what separates us from a lot of other countries. And I'm glad that we're actually doing this. You know, this is my second term in Congress. So last year, we didn't even go through this process. I think this is healthy. I think we all care deeply, and we're very patriotic about this country. But I happen to have a vision that says that the proper role of government is somewhat limited, and that there is a proper role for government, and that we need to adhere to that proper role. You know, it's funny, sometimes I hear opposition to the Republican proposal, the Republican budget, and I hear that we're going to sacrifice this and we're going to cut all this. Let's also understand that we're still going to spend $3.5 trillion with a capital T. That's a lot of money. You know, people often ask me, they say, well, how much is $1 trillion? It's kind of a hard number to get your arms around. But if you were to spend $1 million a day, every day, it would take you almost 3,000 years to get to $1 trillion. To $1 trillion. Well, we're $14 trillion in debt. We're paying more than $600 million a day in interest on that debt. It's on its way to $1 billion a day in just the interest on that debt. And we're going to have to deal with the fact that we got to pay that debt. We got to cut up the government credit card. We have spent far too much money. What I like about what we have proposed in the Republican budget is that we start to rein in the out-of-control spending, yet we still fulfill a lot of the obligations that we have to this country, particularly for seniors and others. We will still spend an exorbitant amount of money, but over the course of time, we will be on the proper trajectory to live within our means. I think that's one of the foundations of this country, is the idea of personal responsibility, the idea that we have to live within our means, that we are self-sufficient. And we're going to have to deal with the fact that in Congress's generations previous, they have racked up this debt. And we can go through and blame each other for that, but the reality moving forward is we have to put ourselves on a trajectory to balance the budget and pay off the debt. And that, I think, is one of the great moral responsibilities that we have in the United States Congress, the adult conversation that we have. There are a lot of needs in this country, but we're broke, ladies and gentlemen. We're broke. And we have got to rein in the spending. And we have got to make the United States as competitive as we can possibly be. Because when we're competitive on the world stage, the United States of America is still the greatest country on the face of the planet. But if we're going to be the military and economic superpower, we have a responsibility to live within our means and to become self-sufficient. I'll reserve the balance of my time, Madam Chair.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Missouri is recognized.
I yield myself 10 seconds to just say when progress is made, someone is always left behind. And my concern is that it's always the vulnerable. I yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Bobby Scott.
The gentleman from Virginia is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Congressional Black Caucus has a long history of submitting fiscally responsible budget alternatives, regardless of who may be sitting in the White House or which party holds the majority in Congress. This year's budget alternative continues this long tradition by putting forth a plan that significantly reduces our deficit over the next decade while increasing economic opportunities and promoting job creation in every corner of our society. Unlike the Republican budget, the CBC budget brings the deficit to 1.4% of GDP by 2015, better than so-called primary balance, which was the goal of the President's Fiscal Commission, and achieves primary balance even earlier than the Commission itself. While I commend the Republican chairman of the Budget Committee for proposing a budget that reduces our long-term debt, he only achieves this by shifting medical costs to lower-income Americans and seniors. The CBC budget is much more responsible. Our budget makes tough choices, but unlike the Republican budget, it doesn't jeopardize Social Security, undermine Medicaid by turning it into a block grant, or shift Medicare costs to seniors by creating a voucher program that doesn't keep pace with medical inflation. Our budget protects these vital programs, and compared to the Republican budget, has $1.3 trillion more in deficit reduction over the next decade. The CBC budget proposes responsible revenue increases by closing corporate loopholes and preferences, deterring aggressive stock speculation, which helped contribute to the 2008 financial crisis, and ensuring that the wealthiest Americans who benefited most from the tax cuts and bailouts in the last decades pay their fair share. Now, with the additional revenues and assuming some of the cuts proposed in the President's budget, the CBC budget uses 80% of the additional revenue for deficit reduction and then invests the rest to protect from making the cuts in our safety net programs like WIC or community health centers, avoiding cuts in investments in our future like Head Start, Pell Grants, high-speed rail, and NASA, reduces cuts in critical functions like clean water, FBI agents, and food inspections, and has more for national defense, homeland security, and our veterans. Our budget also fully funds an additional 14 weeks of emergency unemployment benefits for those who have exhausted their benefits, often referred to as the 99ers. Now, Madam Chair, the CBC budget protects our social safety net. It invests in our future. It maintains essential services and national security. It does all of this and has more deficit reduction than the underlying Republican budget. So we have a choice. We can have lower deficits and a better future, or we can have tax cuts for multimillionaires and oil companies. I urge my colleagues to make the right choice and support the Cleaver Amendment.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Utah is recognized.
Madam Chair, I'd like to yield 3 minutes to the freshman gentleman from Oklahoma, Mr. Langford.
The gentleman from Oklahoma is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The House budget that we're proposing tonight from Republicans is a budget that will take discretionary spending back to the pre-2008 level and begins to deal with our spending issue that we have as a nation. We've increased our discretionary spending 25% over the last 2 years. We're trying to move it back to where we were a few years ago and then allow that to be able to grow with inflation. We're focusing on freezing in the federal workforce. It's a recommendation done by the President's own Debt Commission, and taking that issue on that the President and the Debt Commission gave to say, how do we need to handle our federal workforce as it has increased by 140,000 just in a single year on that. And it begins to walk through the process of what do we do at our social safety net to make sure that social safety net is still there in the years to come. We believe that there needs to be a social safety net, but as our chairman has said multiple times, that safety net should be a safety net, not a hammock. And it should allow people to be able to go through that process to find a safe place and a safe harbor for people for a period of time until they're able to get back on their feet. That's a good thing for us to be able to do as Americans, and we need to find ways to be able to protect that in the days to come. But part of the struggle that we have with that is finding ways that that doesn't become a place where people are trapped indefinitely. So we'd like to be able to implement some of the reforms of the Clinton-era time when with temporary assistance for needy families was transitioned in, that has become such a great success on helping families be able to transition into work. The best way we can take care of families that are in the poverty area is not a program from the government. It is a great job that they have great self-esteem and they can be engaged and be a part of our ongoing economy. The President's own Debt Commission made the comment that the nation is broke, and that what we need to do is focus in on reducing spending and dealing with how we handle what we do as a nation and what we're trying to accomplish. As far as the issues about Medicare, we've been very clear through this process. We're dealing with Medicare changes for those that are 54 years old and younger. And for those that are in poverty and facing disability, those individuals would have a full coverage, and that as they're more wealthy, yes, we would means test that. We have an expectation that wealthier senior adults would be able to help cover more of their own Medicaid or their own Medicare, but for those that are in poverty or near the poverty range, they would be supplementing more to make sure that we're taking care of them, and it would be a guaranteed coverage like they have now, that they don't have to worry about not being able to get to Medicare. They would be able to have it, and that would be secured for them. And we have one more major thing that we've all discussed. We all want taxes to be more simple in the process. Tomorrow is April 15th, all of our favorite day in America, dealing with the taxes and dealing with the process. And it's not a matter of being a great citizen. It's just a matter of going through the tax forms. We need to simplify this process and to make it more flat, more level, more fair for people across the board. So that's a major part of it. We're not talking about raising taxes $6 trillion. We're talking about keeping tax rates where they are and finding a way to be able to honor people, honor families, and honor our rate. With that, I yield back.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Missouri is recognized.
Madam Chair, how much time remains for both sides, please?
The gentleman from Missouri has 8.5 minutes remaining.
Madam Chair, I would now reserve 2 minutes for the gentlelady from Wisconsin, Ms. Gwendolyn Moore.
Thank you so
The
much, Mr.
gentlewoman
Leader.
from Wisconsin is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Congressional Black Caucus, the conscience of the Congress, rejects cuts that wage a war on the poor and a war on the working class. There are 43 of us from 21 states. We represent over 30 million people. And we are aggrieved that 2/3 of the Republican budget cuts come from programs that serve low-income and working-class people, while there is no sacrifice from the uber-wealthy class. It is our job to be a voice in the wilderness and point out that it is downright immoral to choose tax cuts for the wealthiest Americans and billions of dollars of tax breaks and tax subsidies rather than preserving the dignity of a life in decent housing, food security, and access to health care for all Americans. The gentleman, the previous speaker, just pointed out that they're cutting welfare because they believe that people need self-esteem. Well, you cannot eat self-esteem, and you cannot live in a house built on self-esteem. We want you to know that half of Americans in this country are barely making it without any governmental support, and that they need Medicaid. They don't need you to block grant it. Block granting means a cut. Block granting food stamps means a cut. Privatizing Medicare is a cut. Inflicting deep cuts to the low-income heating energy assistance program and denying extended benefits to the unemployed is a cut. And yet, the Congressional Black Caucus prioritizes controlling the debt and deficit. We cut it by $4 trillion over 10 years. We, the CBC, submit that conservative fiscal policy is compatible with compassion for the invisible, voiceless majority of Americans that need their government to respond. And I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Utah is recognized.
Madam Chair, I'd like to yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from Indiana, Mr. Young.
The gentleman from Indiana is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's been much discussion today about shared sacrifice. The notion of shared sacrifice, let's disaggregate that for a moment. We might have shared sacrifice for the next generation. We certainly are contemplating that right now if we fail to act in a responsible manner and address our nation's debt crisis. Shared sacrifice for the current unemployed and the underemployed in our country. That is what we're contemplating if our solution to our nation's problems is merely to increase taxes. We're going to see a decrease in job creation in this country. We'll actually see us go in the other direction in terms of employment in this country if we implement, as is proposed in this substitute, a tax increase of almost $6 trillion as compared to the budget that we are embracing on the Republican side. We're imposing all manner of unnecessary sacrifice under this substitute on Americans that are currently working, middle-class Americans. It contemplates a tax increase on capital gains and dividends at ordinary income rates. What that means, essentially, is we are thinking of taxing pension and mutual funds at a rate as high as 49%. That would adversely impact our seniors. It's not the responsible thing to do. We're also contemplating, here in this proposal, allowing all tax provisions of the 2001 and 2003 deals to expire for all taxpayers. In other words, this is a tax increase, proposed tax increase on middle-class Americans. I don't think that's the right thing to do right now. And let's remind ourselves, we cannot tax our way out of this spending problem. Washington, once again, does not have a tax problem. We're not in this mess because we're not taxing the American people enough. We're instead in this mess because we're spending far too much. This will become a familiar chart for Americans around the country, I hope, but let's look at this. This is the ski slope of future spending projections, according to our Office of Management and Budget and Congressional Budget Office, if we do nothing. Those on the other side are seemingly proposing that we continue along this course or try and remedy this situation through job-constraining tax increases. That's not the way to go. And finally, one statistic that was cited earlier tonight bears reiterating. If we were to tax everyone in this country who makes $250,000 or more, every family in this country, so that's just 2 income earners at the $125,000 level, at 100% of their income, we still could not improve our financial situation enough to restore private sector job creation and put ourselves back on a path to prosperity. That is why I think we need to embrace this Ryan budget. Thank you so much, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Missouri is recognized.
Madam Chair, I reserve 1 minute from the gentleman from Texas, Al Green.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The American people are confronting a dilemma. And the dilemma is simply this: to privatize or not to privatize. When all is said and done, that's the dilemma that we face based upon what the opposing party proposes. The simple solution to education is to simply privatize and give them vouchers. The simple solution to Social Security is to privatize and place it in the stock market. The simple solution to health care is to privatize and give them vouchers. For every complicated problem, there is a simple solution that's usually wrong. I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Utah is recognized.
Madam Chair, I would just say that we don't offer a proposal to privatize Social Security. We do not do the things that were just said on this floor. Nevertheless, I'd like to recognize a gentleman from Indiana and recognize him for 3 minutes, Mr. Rokita.
The gentleman from Indiana is recognized for 3 minutes. Without objection.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I rise also tonight to talk a little bit about the size and the scope and the amount of employees that this federal government has. Now, earlier tonight I talked about the state from which I come from, Indiana. AAA bond rating, not raising taxes on anybody, and a budget that year after year has been in the black. As Secretary of State for Indiana for the last 8 years, I've operated a bureaucracy. I know a little bit about them. And what we have in Indiana, at least in the Secretary of State's office, was a pretty darn good one. We had no more employees in the Indiana Secretary of State's office than we did in the early 80s. We were running on a 1987 budget, unadjusted for inflation. And I can tell by the reaction of some of the members here in the House tonight, it's one of derision. It's one of scoffing. It can be done. The states know how to do it. Let's look to them. In contrast to Indiana, what do we see here at the federal level? 155,000 more bureaucrats than just a few years ago. An 80+% increase in the size and scope of this federal government, Madam Chairman, and that's just the personnel. We can have cuts in each of these departments. Every bureaucrat that we don't hire after one retires will cause a 10% decrease in the federal workforce over just a few years. That's responsible governing, especially when you're talking about a $14 trillion debt. Trillion-dollar year after year deficits. And as the previous Republican speaker, my friend Todd Young, pointed out, it's just getting worse. The red menace is upon us, and it's the red ink produced in this federal government right here from the well of this House to begin with. The Ryan proposal that came out of the Budget Committee addresses this in a responsible manner. The smaller we make this federal government, the more the private sector grows. It's correlation. It's definitional. Pass this budget proposal, the Ryan proposal, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Missouri is recognized.
Madam Chair, I yield 1 minute to the gentlelady from New York, Ms. Yvette Clarke.
The gentlewoman from New York is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the chairman for the time. Madam Speaker, I rise in strong support of the Congressional Black Caucus budget alternative, which lays out what I truly believe to be a more responsible way forward. In stark contrast to the irresponsible and reckless cuts proposed by the majority in the Ryan budget, the CBC budget alternative recognizes that not only can we not cut and slash our way to prosperity on the backs of our nation's most vulnerable while protecting tax cuts for multimillionaires, but we also must invest in our nation's future. Our proposal creates jobs by investing in the green economy, diminishing our dependence on foreign oil, invests in our future by supporting programs that make education from the cradle to college more affordable and protects the most vulnerable Americans. Madam Speaker, it's time that we have an honest conversation with the American people about where we are. The greatest wealth transfer from the poor and the middle class to the rich and the wealthy in our lifetime. How we got here: Bush tax cuts, subprime scamming, and financial sector greed. And how we get to fiscal solvency by supporting the CBC budget alternative. We are the conscience of the Congress.
The gentlewoman's time has expired. The gentleman